What's happening, musical athletes? Trumpeter Bobby Spellman here. And by now you're probably painfully aware that the trumpet can be a fairly physically demanding instrument. And one of the most challenging facets of learning the trumpet is in developing, building, and maintaining endurance so as to be able to play fairly strenuous music for long periods of time without losing steam. Well, today I wanted to cover a couple of tips for building endurance and maintaining stamina in a performance setting on this episode of Trumpet with Bob. It's summertime in New York City, and the summer always has me very busy traveling around, playing all kinds of different gigs. Been playing jazz gigs, big band gigs, Afrobeat gigs, wedding gigs, gigs with my brass band, Dinganek, and all kinds of recording sessions. And while the approach and style of these different performances may differ, all of them require that I be able to play at a high level for many hours at a time. And for that reason, my job as a trumpet player really depends on my endurance. There are two important components in practical endurance on the trumpet. The first is practicing exercises in a way that will condition your muscles to be able to hang on for long periods of time in a performance setting. The second component is making sure that when you're in that performance setting, you are playing in an efficient way so as not to overstress those finely conditioned muscles. I'm going to talk about both of those components in this video, but we're going to start with a couple of practical tips for practicing endurance. There is no one perfect endurance exercise, and every individual is going to require different exercises based on his or her strengths and weaknesses. However, there is an underlying principle that remains true regardless of what you're doing when practicing endurance. And that is that you want to be able to push your muscles right to the edge of fatigue and then give yourself a chance to rest so as to let the muscles rebuild. Now, rest is of critical importance in this whole equation, and it's always better to take a break rather than try to beat your lips into submission after they've, gotten to the point of exhaustion. The reason for this is that you can end up developing bad habits like jamming the horn into your face more than you need to, or moving the mouthpiece into different parts of your lips if you're trying to overcome extremely fatigued lips. So, the rule of thumb tends to be that you want to rest as much as you practice. I'm going to take you through now a little sample practice routine, and then you can insert whatever exercises you happen to be working on at the time in order to get the most out of your endurance practice. So, the first step is always to get a good warm-up in. Regardless of whether you're playing a performance or whether you're practicing, warming up is huge. I have found many times that without a proper warm-up, I end up getting fatigued very quickly. And just like an athlete, we need to make sure that we take time to warm up. So you can start off with just some long tones and simple exercises to get the blood flowing, warm up your muscles, and get ready to go. Once you feel as though you are properly warmed up, the next stage is to find an exercise that you're working on that will enable you to really push your muscles to the edge of fatigue. There are a couple exercises that I like a lot for this. My very favorite exercises are flexibility exercises. This gives you the opportunity to really work out your muscles in kind of a strenuous fashion. And then once you get to a point where you can really feel the burn in the corners of your lips, then it's a good opportunity to take a short break. I'll give you a quick example of a flexibility exercise that I would often use. Play these for, let's say, 15 minutes, just until I get to the point where I can really feel my muscles working and I'm starting to feel the fatigue. It might sound like this. All right, so in practicing endurance, I may do variations on this kind of an exercise, all the while paying close attention to the way that my muscles feel. At a certain point, I will usually start to feel the weight of this effort in the corners of my lips, but you may also feel muscles in your face. You never want to feel any sharp pain, but just like if you're doing push-ups or any number of other kind of muscle exercises, you will feel the burn in the corners of your face. And at that point, you want to push yourself a little bit, but once you start to get fatigued, that's a good opportunity to take a break. If you've been playing these exercises for 15 minutes, take 15 minutes off. If you've been playing for 30 minutes, take 30 minutes off. Again, the rule of thumb is just to rest as much as you play. In the meantime, you can do some ear training exercises. You can work on some composition that you're doing. You could play the banjo. Or you can continue to play the trumpet as long as you're playing exercises that require very little muscle effort. So if you're playing in the very low register, for example, and you're just working out some fingering technique, things like that, you can continue to play the trumpet, but you do want to give your lips a chance to rest. Rest is of critical importance in building that muscle so that you will be able to use it for a long period of time in a performance setting. In addition to flexibility exercises, there are a number of great endurance exercises, including the interval studies from the Carmine Caruso book, or any range exercises you're working on, or even any particularly strenuous pieces of music. Doesn't really matter as long as you're getting your muscles to really work, and then when you find them starting to get fatigued, you take that break. One of the things that can really give our stamina a run for its money in the trumpet world is being able to play at a loud volume for long periods of time. I've found playing in many brass bands over the years that having to play over a bunch of trombones and trumpets and tubas and drums all playing at the same time can lead to fatigue pretty quick. So I have one exercise that I really like to do that sort of replicates the challenges of playing at a loud volume. And I will show it to you right now. What I like to do is start in the low register and play triads up 2 octaves, stay on a note, crescendo up, decrescendo, and then come back down the triads. The value of starting in the low register is that you make sure that you're able to let your lips vibrate in the way that they need to in the low register, staying relaxed. And then as you get into the upper register, you'll find that note and then crescendo up to give your lips a hard time, and then move back down the registers again. The reason it's difficult to play it at a high volume, those louder dynamics, is that with that extra pressure coming from your air, your lips have to work extra hard in order to maintain this kind of equilibrium that allows your lips to vibrate. So that you're really fighting against all that air coming out of your lungs, and that creates extra fatigue. So this little exercise will help not only in developing range, but especially in building the endurance in the when those dynamics start to get pretty wild, which as a trumpet player is often the case. So I'm going to show you that, and that sounds a little something like this. And I'll continue to take that exercise up chromatically until I reach a place in which I either can't hit the notes or I'm starting to really feel that fatigue. If you'd like to try that exercise for yourself, I'll leave a link in the description below to a PDF that you can check out and try practicing on your own. All right, taking the time to practice these kinds of exercises consistently will certainly prepare you for the potentially strenuous circumstances you might find on a gig. However, that's only half the battle. The other trick to being able to hang on for a long period of time in strenuous musical circumstances is to make sure that you're being as efficient as possible while you're playing. So this isn't so much about preparation, but it is about approaching a performance setting with the kind of efficiency that will allow you to get through the gig without burning out. So here's a couple of tips that I have that I've learned through the years that may help you in a performance setting. Number one, you don't want to play any louder than you have to. It's very easy as a trumpet player to get excited and really put it into 5th gear and get wild and, knock out some crazy notes. And that can be a lot of fun, and sometimes that's unavoidable, and sometimes it's the right musical choice. However, one thing that's easy to do is when it's harder to hear yourself in a large group setting, it's easy to overblow in order to be able to hear yourself. But there are a couple things that you can do to try to minimize that additional effort, because once again, the more volume of air you're putting through the horn, the more your muscles are going to have to work to hold on, and that's going to mean that you're going to get tired faster than you need to. So if you're playing in an acoustic setting like a brass band or a marching band where there's a whole ton of people playing all at once, one thing that you want to remember is that the bell is over here shooting the sound that way and your ears are back here. So to some degree, you want to trust that your sound is going to reach the ears of the audience. That's kind of a psychological point, and it's not always that easy, but you want to really rely on the core of your sound and understand that even though you may not be able to hear yourself that well, it's possible that the members of the audience will be able to hear you well. You are a trumpet after all, and these things were built since the dawn of time to be able to project over whole armies and through religious ceremonies and other things where you need something loud. So, one thing is just to keep in mind that you don't want to blast any louder than you have to, and as long as you've got a strong core and you're able to maintain that sound, you should be able to be heard over the band. Now, some circumstances do not allow for too much relaxation, and you may have to play a little louder, and that's just the nature of the beast. However, if you're trying to avoid overblowing, you will be able to maintain for longer periods of time. Another circumstance I find myself in frequently is playing in electric bands, where there's a bunch of electric guitars, bass, keyboards of various kinds, and a drummer, and everybody's all mic'd up on stage. One thing that's important, and this is sort of a technical thing, and it's a little outside the purview of normal trumpet pedagogy, but is very important, is that if you get a good monitor mix, that will help you from blowing out your chops playing too loud. So if you go into a club and you're playing with an electric band and the sound engineer says, we don't need to mic the horns, or I don't think you need a monitor, I would fight back on that. Try to get a good monitor mix. One big tip is if you can lower everybody else in the monitors so that you're not getting blasted with everybody all at once. That's a big help. If you can avoid standing in front of a huge bass cabinet or blaring guitar amps, that will help you to be able to hear yourself. They make sound reflector shields that you can put on microphones that are actually rather effective, more effective than you'd think. And when all else fails, have the sound engineer turn yourself up in the monitor. If you're using a microphone, you have a big advantage in being able to play the trumpet because you can avoid overblowing. But once again, in an electric setting, sometimes it's easy to overblow. Just do your best not to play any louder than you really have to in order to get the point across, and that's going to make your life a little bit easier. You're going to save yourself from getting fatigued too early. All right, tip number 2, beyond trying not to play louder than you need to, is to rely on your air support and your core muscles to really push that air out of your gut in order to take a lot of the energy off of your face. You'll find that if you don't have a full breath, if you're forgetting to breathe, or you're not using your air efficiently, then your muscles in your face are going to have to work a lot harder to get these notes to come out the way that you want them to. So always remember to take a huge breath whenever you get a chance and really work to engage your core before you play and try to put some of that energy on the muscles in your abdomen in order to take the energy off of your face. Obviously, you're going to have to engage the muscles in your face. This is a part of playing the trumpet, but having an efficiency of that airstream is really going to take some of the weight off of your face. So one of the things that I notice if I'm playing high notes for long periods of time is if my technique is right, I will feel the energy in my abdominal muscles before I'll feel it in my face. Your goal is to try to stay as relaxed as possible up here and really use that air support in order to be able to ride that airstream and make those notes come out without any extra effort on your facial muscles. That whole concept can be a little complicated and may require some experimentation, but I'm going to do a little demonstration to see if I can give you an idea of what I'm thinking about when I'm doing that. So I'm going to do a first example. I'm going to try to play up some high notes, and I'm just going to overblow it and really try to not use too much of my air, but use my face. And then I'm going to try to give you an example of how I would use my air and the engagement of my core muscles in order to get those notes to come out. So here's the first one. I'm going to try to use really bad technique and knock some funny notes out. All right, I'm throwing the notes out there, but I got to move around a lot in my face. There's a lot of air coming out. I have to really work hard to keep everything in balance here. Whereas, if I'm thinking about using my air, and that is, I'm really thinking about engaging my core, pushing that air out of my gut, and I'm trying not to put any extra effort on my face. Obviously, my muscles, my orbicularis oris muscles, the muscles in my face, everything else have to be engaged. But as long as you got that airstream under control, you're going to find it much easier to play in fairly strenuous musical circumstances with much greater ease. All right, my third tip is fairly simple in theory, but sometimes fairly challenging in practice. And that is, one of the hardest things as a trumpet player is just to have the horn on your face for long periods of time. It really helps to be able to take the horn off your face for a minute, let the blood come back into your lips, be able to blow out your chops, and just allow yourself a little time to regroup. Oftentimes that's written into the music. If you're playing funk music, there might be a lot of time in which you're not playing. If you're playing James Brown style funk music, you may be playing constantly. It just depends on the music. But I think it's important for composers and arrangers to understand that if the horn is on your face for a long period of time, no matter how good you are and how much time you spent practicing your endurance, it's going to be pretty hard to hold on. So whenever you get a chance, be sure to take the horn off your face. If you don't need to have the horn on your face, take a little time to take it off of there. And, embrace your breaks in the set. If you have any opportunity to take a little break, use it, because I find that if I have a little space in between the tunes that I'm playing, if I have a couple of breaks every once in a while, I can play all night. But if that horn is on my face, as it is sometimes with, for example, Balkan brass music or even my own brass band music, there are certain circumstances where the horn's just on your face a lot, and it's easy to get fatigued under those circumstances. So whenever you get the chance, take that mouthpiece off your face, let the blood get back into your lips, blow your chops out. Just try to take advantage of whatever rests you have in the music to regroup before you have to go back in and knock out some crazy notes. All right, gang, well, I hope this helps in your quest for superhuman endurance. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more trumpet videos and videos of various kinds, including improvisation and music theory going forward. Also, if you want to follow me in my various musical endeavors, you can follow me on Instagram @BobSpellman and check in on some of the interesting summertime gigs that I've been getting myself into. All right, gang, well, I hope you have a wonderful time practicing, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya. Trumpet with Bob. All right, friends, thanks so much for checking out this video. I hope it helped in your understanding of the musical world and in your pursuit of the majesty of musical self-expression. If you like this video, you can let us know by giving it a like, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more musical education videos going forward. You can also follow me on Instagram @BobSpellman for some more musical fun. The Ridgewood School of Music is now accepting new students online as well as in person in the Brooklyn, Queens, and greater New York City area. You can find us on our website at www.ridgewoodschoolofmusic.com, or you can send us an email at ridgewoodschoolofmusic@gmail.com. And we'll get back to you as soon as we can, try to set you up with a great teacher for the kinds of music that you're looking to study. All right, gang, well, thanks again, and until next time, happy practicing.